Just because you can't move well doesn't mean you're destined to be a good fighter. But in these cases, the fact that these fighters can dance certainly adds a little insight into their character. And in some cases, you can even see some of that physical dexterity in their fighting style. These are the best dancers in MMA. Israel Adesanya. Some of these fighters have abilities in the cage that mirror some dancing skill outside of it. Others leave you totally surprised when they bust a move. When it comes to Israel Adesanya, it makes sense that he would be a great dancer. His movement in the cage is so fluid, so flexible, that no fans were surprised when they realized that Izzy actually was part of a dance troupe in New Zealand in his youth. And when the time came for his first shot at UFC gold, he actually brought some of his old friends out to join him in a highly choreographed walkout. And to this day, this walkout is one of the most impressive the UFC has ever seen. Izzy might just have a second career path in store for when he does retire, if going back down the dancing route is something that interests him. In fact, he might just be the best dancer in this video. Chris Barnett. You know how we just said that Izzy is the type of guy who fights in a way that has parallels with his dancing style? Well, the same could be said for Chris Barnett. Sure, he doesn't look like the most athletic dude in the world, but when he starts throwing kung fu kicks and wild techniques, the whole picture becomes a lot clearer. Barnett moves insanely well for a man who doesn't really look like an athlete. Whenever he takes the time to dance for his audience, the reaction is generally one of shock, awe, and eventually undeniable respect.
Yeah, he can. I mean, he can break dance.
He's a true one-of-a-kind. Renan Barão. Is there anything cooler than seeing a fighter score a brutal victory by way of spinning back kick TKO?
Back kick, he's hurt. He hurt him big time. He's trying to finish. It is all up.
And then immediately celebrate by dancing like they don't have a care in the world.
Bantamweight champion.
These Brazilians definitely have the dance moves to back up their stellar performances in the cage. And when Renan Barão managed to score the finest heavyweight real knockout of his career, he seemingly couldn't help but express himself in a very unique way. While meters to his side, Eddie Wineland was dealing with a definite concussion. MMA is a funny sport, folks. Krzysztof Jotko. Krzysztof Jotko was a decent fighter in his day. One who, while never setting the world on fire, provided some big names in the UFC with a stern test whenever he was called upon. But for our money, he might just have the slickest breakdancing skills the promotion has ever seen.
And Thiago Santos have more victories since 2013 than
Jotko wasn't necessarily known for his electric fighting style or finishing ability, but man, put this dude on a dance floor and you'll get a response. And when he celebrated a win over Bruno Santos on the scorecards to move to a clean 14-0, he couldn't help but save his most entertaining moment of the night for immediately after. And to be fair, that was some very impressive breakdancing. Tony Ferguson. On a memorable episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Joe and the famed BJJ innovator Eddie Bravo were talking about the correlation between breakdancing skill and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, how the ability to transfer weight and pivot can be very useful in both. And as it turns out, one of Bravo's prized students, Tony Ferguson, proves this point perfectly. Known for having some wild submissions off his back and a fondness for the Imanari roll, Tony is also a skilled breakdancer, which really does make sense when you stop and think about it. El Kukui in his prime was one of the most strangely athletic fighters to ever do it, and his fondness for breakdancing certainly helps to explain his incredibly unique game. Stamp Fairtex. It would be easy to get caught up in the hype and show businessy nature of Stamp Fairtex's commitment to scoring a viral hit with her walkouts. But trust us, this one championship standout is an excellent fighter, a highly violent striking specialist who has a talent for inflicting damage using her high-level Muay Thai. But Stamp is also quite famous for her dancing, and the majority of her success on the internet doesn't come from her brutal knockouts, and there are a lot of them. No, instead, her walkouts and general love of all things dancing has taken on a life of its own. In fact, some people aren't fully aware of just how good a fighter she actually is. Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira has certainly dialed down his showmanship as the years have rolled on, but in his early days, this flamboyant Brazilian striker was laughed out of gyms for taking an approach to MMA that some considered clownish. Well, Pereira has clearly matured in the cage, and is now riding a 6-fight streak of wins. But in his youth, Pereira was thrown the wildest techniques imaginable while putting some major fear in the hearts of his coaches by spending way too much energy on dancing through his walkout. Win, lose, or draw, you've got to admire his dedication. But either way, nobody's laughing at him anymore, that's for sure. Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Waterson. The clash between Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Waterson in the UFC strawweight division was not memorable for the fight itself, but instead, the biggest moment of this short rivalry came when the two engaged in a viral dance-off during the weigh-ins.
Karate hottie this weekend. Now look at these two young ladies having fun up there dancing. I would not want to go up on the stage.
As for who managed to win it, we'll let you be the judge of that. But on fight night, it was Waterson who managed to score the submission in the first round to earn herself a $50,000 performance bonus.
He chokes out Paige Van.
Valentina Shevchenko. Aside from Israel Adesanya, Valentina Shevchenko is the most well-educated and experienced dancer in MMA today.
And this leads.
She knows ballet and a style of belly dancing, and in every Octagon appearance, she's made a dancing flourish part of her pre-fight introduction.
Martial arts that she's showing women, this is where you got.
And when she wins, which, let's face it, is most of the time,
Undisputed best.
she's also known to follow up her performance with yet another display of her dancing prowess.
This flyweight champion in UFC history.
Shevchenko is an all-time great for women's MMA in terms of fighting.
And go by submission.
But if this were a ranked list for MMA dancers, she'd probably be in the top 3 or even top 2.
And she's trilingual. How about that?
It's crazy. She spoke 3 languages there.
Yeah. Well, all of them better than me. And I talk for a living.
Stipe Miocic.
Get the belt back.
Out of every fighter we've listed for this video, Stipe Miocic is not exactly the most naturally gifted dancer. In fact, the only dancing he did inside the cage was as bizarre as it gets. But considering that Stipe is the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, who are we to tell him not to bust out an odd little dance move just seconds after TKOing one of the greatest fighters to ever do it in Daniel Cormier? You can dance whatever way you like, Stipe. Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is the greatest entertainer to ever lace up gloves.
This is why they said I should fight you. Wow.
And when you consider just how wild his fighting style consistently was, it's kind of incredible that he's still a GOAT candidate.
Forrest.
John Jones, GSP, Mighty Mouse, Khabib. These are all highly methodical and tactical fighters. But Silva was a total ninja in the cage.
It's all over. Wow. Anderson Silva.
Though his UFC walkouts were generally a lot more straightforward, the Spider showcased some amazingly well-produced walkouts before he hit the big time, the best of which being a now legendary Michael Jackson impression. Anderson had a bit of everything to his game during his best years. There was some Bruce Lee, some Muhammad Ali, and as it turned out, he also paid homage to the King of Pop, Genki Sudo. And finally, we come to the king of the elaborate walkout, one of MMA's greatest ever showmen.
Holds a mixed martial arts record of 4 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighing in at 155 pounds. Fighting out of Tokyo, Japan. Please welcome from Zero Samurai,
Genki Sudo was so driven to entertain his fans that he basically quit MMA and became a successful pop star in Japan after his retirement. But with one of the strangest fighting styles you'll ever see in the ring and an undeniable knack for a theatrical walkout, Sudo's best days in MMA were an absolute thrill ride, thrilling to behold in the minutes before a fight, and arguably even better when the action got underway.